to the Not Superheroes Gets Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be present for our kids, and come back generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing to barbecue is. Hello, I'm Sean Laurie. Hope you guys are having an amazing, blessed day today. Man, hopefully you enjoyed the 3-day weekend, and shout out for everyone that serves, and prayers and thoughts for those that lost loved ones. That definitely is a day to be remembered. I know we barbecue and things like that, but when the holidays, especially with something like that, anything with the military, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, all that stuff is, take time to appreciate our freedom. Now, with that being said, make sure, you like, you subscribe, share, tell a friend. You guys know I appreciate the support so much. Man, it's something that I want to really dive into. If you didn't see, I think it was like Ray J did like a boxing thing with this YouTube guy back in the day. I think his name's like Super Hot Fire. But he did a boxing thing with that, and Ray J, I know, was talking about he had like health issues or something like that, right? But it just had me thinking just of different things that we see celebrities do. A couple basketball players just did some boxing. We've seen it before where, so different celebrities just do different things, right, to get attention or to be talked about or whatever the case is. And this isn't necessarily at them. This gets something that really came to my head, my heart, where it's just like, as men, right, as fathers, when we don't know our purpose, our identity, and what can that look like, right? What can that look like? And again, but before I dive into this, I just want to make sure, like, this isn't criticizing any other man, any man that not even those celebrities, because I don't know them, I don't know their stories. And if it hits for you, it's not even necessarily attacking you. It's just more so about reflection, right? Because if I'm being honest, there was a season in my life where I was fighting for that identity, right? Trying to prove myself, trying to stay relevant, trying to figure out where I fit while quietly disconnected from my purpose, right? And not even realizing it. And what I've learned is, when a man doesn't know who he is, life will eventually expose that confusion, right? And not because, God hates you, not because, anyone's maybe against you, right? But because pain has a way of forcing reflection, right? So today, I want to talk about, I guess, like 5 different things, right? 5 different things when it comes to purpose, identity, becoming the man that, God has called you to be, right? And I don't know, I guess, like I said, this is something that really just stuck out to me. Just that, what else? I think I only mentioned 3. Was it not every opportunity is your alignment, right? And purpose requires a restraint, right? But we'll dive into all those things. But first, I wanted to make sure that I share with you guys, the first point is purpose protects. Well, I'll speak for me. Purpose protects me from unnecessary fights, right? And what I mean by that is like, I have family members that had a certain vision for me, right? They thought that I should do a certain thing, right? It could be, hey, go to this college or pick this career path, right? And for me, I was fighting against that because I'm like, yeah, man, you know what? My aunt said, or my mom said, or my friend said, or my cousin said, right? All these different people that I trust, that I love, are trying to point me to this direction. And I'm fighting against it because in my spirit, like, I feel like that's not really what I want to do. but I'm not sure, right? And it sounds good. So like for me, it made me want to it almost made me want to pick a path that I really don't want to do, right? That's one of them. Also, I think, there's times when we're not sure about purpose, and we feel like we have to respond to everything, right? We might get defensive at different things, and not every challenge deserves our energy. Not every disrespect, right, needs a reaction from us, right, which is hard, right, or I should say a retaliation, right, from us. Because at the end of the day, purpose gives us perspective. A lot of unnecessary conflict comes from insecurity, ego, trying to prove something, when you don't need to, right? But when you know who you are, you stop defending yourself to people who were never assigned to define you in the first place. So like what fights are you fighting right now, right? When it comes to that purpose, because for me, like I said, it's one of those things I try to be conscious of, because I remember, for example, going back and forth online a lot of times, get caught up in that social media, whatever it is. For me, it's sports. I know people, politics or whatever, celebrity, news is coming out, right? But for me, I'm going hard, debating on whatever sports topic there is, and getting offended and feeling some type of way, and getting annoyed because they're like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, no, I do know what I'm talking about, and right, just because they disagree with me, or just because they took a personal shot at me, I felt the need to defend myself, right? So it happens a lot of times. I feel like when people are losing debates, right, or disagreements, that's when, instead of staying in one lane, they go to the next lane, right? So it could be whatever it is. It could be, hey, I'm debating about, I don't know, what's the common annoying one? Michael Jordan, LeBron, right? And I can make a good point and some facts on it, like, hey, you know what? You're being super emotional when it comes to LeBron or Michael Jordan. You're talking about LeBron, or you're talking about Michael Jordan, I don't know, not being the best teammate. You're talking about LeBron, whatever, playing in the bubble, whatever the case is, right? You're having these conversations, and then all of a sudden they say like, oh man, you know what? I could tell that you never played sports, or I could tell that you don't know what you're talking about, right? And then all of a sudden we get defensive, and we want to start pulling our accolades. You want to try to defend, oh, I played at this school here, oh, I averaged 15 points here. Why? Because of what someone said on the internet, right? And because that we gotta be careful of that too, right? We gotta be careful of that too. And that actually gets to my second point, and that's relevance is a dangerous drug, right? Social media, attention, validation, right? It can be addictive for us as men, right? And what is that showing for our kids? What is that showing to others, right? Think about it like I said with Ray J, right? People didn't believe, I don't know his health issues, I don't keep track of him like that, but he claimed, he had this health scare, whatever, and then they were talking about that, and then he's, next thing he's out and about, going out, whatever, and now he's boxing, right? He's like, okay, is he doing all these things for attention, right? And so we just got to be careful of that, because I think a lot of times, being seen can feel like success to us, or can make us feel important or make us feel needed by chasing, relevancy, right? It can make you, compromise your peace though as well, your integrity and your identity, if you're not careful about it. When relevance becomes the goal, right, purpose gets pushed to the side. So for me, I've been doing this for 2 years now. I could easily be like, oh man, you know what? It's not at the point that I want it to be, right? Or I'm not being seen, quote unquote. But me being a believer, I'm like, no, the people that need to see me, right? My kids see that I'm showing up every day, right? My kids see that, hey, dang, Dad's consistent with this, with the podcast. He's consistent with the program he's building for fathers. He's consistent with this got the nonprofit out, right? He's consistent with helping the community. So they're seeing that, right? But is that not enough? Am I more so worried about what everyone else is thinking, or trying to get their praise? But at the end of the day, that doesn't validate me, right? But attention can feel good, don't get me wrong. Everyone likes, a little bit of attention, of course. Yes, that feels good, right? And validation can feel very powerful. But neither can replace your peace and your purpose. I'm trying to build something that really is going to last. And so I want to encourage you guys as well, as just making sure that you're not getting so caught up on the attention, right? You're not getting so caught up on what the next person thinks. And then you're trying to defend that, like I mentioned earlier, right? For me, if I don't know my purpose, right, I could start arguing with people for no reason. Someone could say, "Hey, you're not really trying to help other fathers," right? And then I start pulling out different receipts. I start pulling out different conversations. I start showing different things to prove to someone else that doesn't know me, right? Or to prove to someone, online or whatever the case is. I'm doing all these things to get their validation, when at the end of the day, the only validation that matters comes from me, right? If I know what I'm doing, I know the conversations that I have with people. I know the impact that I've made on other people's lives. I know, that's why I say in the beginning, right? Like, hey, I thank you guys for the text and messages, because I really am thankful for that. Now, I don't go into detail about it, because at the end of the day, I cherish those, right? Anytime any of you guys have hit me up, either with some encouraging words, or hit me up of you enjoyed the last episode, or you enjoyed whatever I said or whatever I did, those mean a lot to me. But I don't need to blast it on social media. I know in the world now, again, right, relevancy is a dangerous drug. So I know now we live in today's age where, unfortunately, someone can be in a car accident asking, to be helped out the car, and instead of, helping, there might be 10 people with their camera phones out, right? Trying to record it, trying to go viral. And then if they have enough time, then maybe they'll try to help them. Unfortunately, that's what the world we live in now. But for me, I look at like, am I building a purpose, or am I chasing something that's visible, right? And for me, I'm more focused on the purpose. It's going to be visual over time anyways if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But also understanding with that, this is point number 3, is not every opportunity is an alignment, right? So it gets confusing at times, because we think, oh man, this is what I wanted, or this is what I prayed for, or, I'm supposed to do this. And it's not really in line with what you're supposed to do. So, quick story, I was supposed to actually work in the prisons, right? So I was supposed to work in the prisons. My family was telling me, hey, get in the county, it'll be good money, things like that. So I really didn't want to, but I was focused on the money. I was focused on that's what everyone's telling me I should be doing, so I'm gonna just do it. And so I applied for it, and I did the physical, I did the written, I passed all of it, right? And crazy enough, I went. I was waiting for them, because it takes a process. I get something in the mail, or it used to. It takes a process to hear something. So I didn't hear nothing in the mail for a while, for a few months. Then I got something from the mail saying, like, unfortunately, due to budget cuts, you basically, like, they wouldn't be to accept me, right? And I would have to do the whole process again when they had the budget for it, for me to get in. And in that, right, like, some of my family was like, dang, man, that sucks. But I'm not gonna lie, I was happy about it, right? I was happy about it because at the end of the day, it wasn't something I really wanted to do. I just did it because I felt like that's what my family wanted me to do, right? I felt like at the end of the day, that's the purpose they want me to have, but it wasn't mine. It wasn't something that I desired. And so when I got that letter saying, hey, sorry you didn't make it, it was actually a sigh of relief. But I wouldn't even been in that position if I was okay with saying no. Hey, I understand, my family, as my family, I know you guys love me. I know you guys think this is the right route for me, but this is not where my heart's at, right? This doesn't make sense for me. And so I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay with that. And There's been times when I've been asked to speak to certain places, right? And if it's not aligned with what I have, I've told them no, right? Because every platform isn't your platform, right? Every invitation isn't your assignment, um, and every opportunity isn't aligned with who you're becoming. So you have to understand that too, right? So I know we're guilty as that as men, as providers, right? We're constantly trying to figure out how we can provide, how we can do whatever we need to do for our family, right? And so I don't know. Let's say, for example, you're going to school to be a teacher, right? And you're in the process of being a teacher, and you're doing that plus working whatever part time or whatever the case is, and how it is right now, it's in line for you to be a teacher because your schedule works that way, right? But someone comes along and tells you, hey, I'm making great money with insurance or with real estate, come join over here. And though, that your purpose, your calling, what God put you on earth to be a teacher, right? You love it. You love how you're able to impact students' lives and things like that, right? And in that, though, you're getting confused because you're like, man, my friend just told me how much money he's making from insurance, or how much money he's making from whatever thing he has going on, right? And or real estate, I think that's what I mentioned. Real estate, insurance, whatever the case is, and you start trying to drift from that. And then you drift from that. Let's say you stop going to school, or you stop, being in line with that as the teacher example, and you get into that real estate or you get into insurance, whatever, and you're making solid money, but then you realize, dang, this isn't fulfilling. This isn't what I was even supposed to be doing, right? Dang, I didn't realize with this schedule, I don't get to see my kids as much. If I could stay focused, I would have been a teacher, and me and my kids literally would have had the same schedule, right? I'm off in the whole summer with them, or whatever the case is, right? And so sometimes saying yes to the wrong thing delays the right thing. And so you have to be conscious of that. You have to be aware of that. You don't want to delay the right thing that's for you. So at the end of the day, alignment means, at least for me, it means, does this fit the man that I'm becoming? Right? Does this fit the family I'm building? And then if it's not, then you have to really consider why you even, or you have to really think about why you even considering it if it doesn't align with what you have. So what I'm saying, I guess ask yourself, like, what am I saying yes to? Like, maybe will this be pulling me away from my purpose? And if so, then it's okay to say no, and you have to be okay with that, which can be hard to do, but you have to be okay with that. And so I guess that's why, point number 4, I guess that's why, purpose requires restraint, right? Sometimes growth looks silent, right? Sometimes maturity looks like not responding, right? Like I said, as far as earlier with social media, there's no reason for me to be fighting with someone online of who I am, or getting upset because someone wants to put a label on me when they don't know who I am, right? And now I'm trying to defend who I am as a man, who I am as a father, who I am as a husband because of someone else, So being able to restrain and know, to have self-control and know when to speak on things, when not to, when to stand up on things, when to say no, right? All those different things, that doesn't make you weak, because at the end of the day, anybody can react, but not everybody can regulate their feelings, right? Can regulate what they're allowing in their home, or in their mental space, So as fathers, husbands, and man, we need to be able to have that restraint. Our children are watching how we handle pressure anyways. At the end of the day, I know my kids are constantly watching me. So at the end of the day, I look at it like they're holding me accountable. Just like I hold them accountable, I know they're holding me accountable to certain things, because they'll tell me, hey, Dad, you said you was going to do this. Hey, Dad, what happened here? And so for me, I don't want it to be where I would tell them one thing and do another. I'm very big on that. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I want to actually live out what I say and tell them the same thing. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't fall through, they're like, hey, you know what? But my dad did say he said what he did and did what he said. And that for me, that's a big thing. Um, and then I did four points. Excuse me. I think I have one more. Oh, the fifth point that I have for you guys is um, identifying. What's the word? How can I put this? Identifying confusion, right? Identifying confusion. I guess it can. Oh, I'm sorry, not identifying. I'm sorry. Identity confusion creates public damage. That's how we'll do that one, right? And so when a man's confused internally, right, it eventually shows externally, right? Confusion leaks, even if you try your best to try to hide it, but confusion will affect your relationships, right? Imagine with your kids or your spouse because you're doing something that someone else wants you to do, right? Because of the fact that you're seeking validation from other people, and so when your kids don't acknowledge certain things, you feel some type of way, or your spouse doesn't acknowledge certain things, you feel some type of way, right? So it could damage, relationships. It could damage your reputation, right? Because what if we get out of character? Because at the end of the day, we're constantly trying. We don't know our purpose. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing. We don't know who we are, and so we just do whatever's trendy. We just do whatever is cool at that time, right? I remember back in the day when I was in high school, right? Obviously, we're young, right? We don't know who we are. A lot of folks, right? But there would be people that would act like they're from certain hoods. There would be people that would change, who they date, right? Their dating preference, because at the time is trending, right? They would change just certain things about themselves because at the end of the day, they're trying to do what's trendy, what's hot, or whatever the case is, and they didn't care what that was, right? We see it unfortunately on social media, right? A lot of people don't know who they are, so they're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, if I do this, I'm gonna go viral, and that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? And so they're willing to lose themselves for likes, for clicks, but just understanding, not for us to fall for that and how it can damage our reputation, how it can damage our legacy, and people are watching, right? People are watching. So a lot of public mistakes start though privately, and what I mean by that, it's because privately we're struggling with our identity, right? That's why healing matters. That's why self-awareness matters. That's why knowing your purpose matters. And that's why for me, making sure I'm in line with God and making sure I'm following what he has for me, right? Because you can't build a healthy life on a confused foundation. And that's not something I want for me or my family. So for every man that was able to hear this or watch it or whatever, I want you to ask yourself, does the life I'm living align with the man I'm becoming right now? Are you chasing relevance, or are you walking in purpose? Another thing to ask yourself, are you reacting or are you exercising restraint when you need to be able to master that at times, right? Do you know who you are, or are you still fighting to prove that, right? Every day is it one of those things? No, I'm a man. I ain't soft whoopty whoop, or yeah, of course I'm a work this job and work that job because at the end of the day that's what I am. Like, yes, you are a hard worker. You are a father. You're a husband. You're a man. You're all these different things. A brother, right? A cousin. Yes, but is that right? Is that who you're becoming? Is that who you are? Right? Understanding that. So, healing just starts with honest conversations. And if you're walking in your purpose, when I say your purpose, it's not something where you got to be like, oh, I started this business. No, because there's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, right? Clocking in, clocking out. No, just are you in your purpose as whatever that is, as the man you need to be for yourself and for your family, right? Are you walking in that light? Are you being the things that you need to be? Or are you just kind of going through the motions? Or are you just chasing what's trendy? Or are you constantly switching up and then you're wondering why dang, why nothing sticks? Nothing sticks because you keep going to what's trendy. You keep going to whatever one of your homies told you. Your homie said, hey, man, this is cool. Let's get in this real estate. You have no interest in real estate at all. But because they told you that, you're focused on the money and not focused on what you're supposed to be doing, right? You're focused on jumping to that where you're like, oh, actually, no, the job I'm doing, I enjoy. The job I have actually gives me time to see my kids. It works right. Like, but you're so busy trying to chase the next thing instead of it. So you got to have real tough conversations with yourself, and purpose begins when we stop performing and start becoming. So at the end of the day, we shouldn't have to feel like we're pretending to be something we're not. We should just be committed to being the best version of ourselves for ourselves and for our kids. Because if not, then everything is just going to fall apart. But I just wanted to share that with y'all, man, because that's something that just really dawned on me. Is just like attention is one heck of a drug, right? That all of us at times can fall for. If we're not being humble, if we're not being conscious of it. And that's what I want to make sure that my kids understand, and something that, I try to make sure I implement as well. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. So yeah, man, again, I appreciate you guys, and like always, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. I'll see you guys on the next one.